Hey, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Beyond the Break with Coco Lasso. Today, I have a special guest for episode 4. His name is Legacy Vaults, aka my good friend Tim. How are you doing today?
Doing good, man. Appreciate you having me on, man. I'm excited.
Nah, man. I thank you first off for hopping on and having the time and everything, and joining in. And I love how this worked out because I actually met you when I made a post about having the idea of starting a podcast, and you just reached out to me, and how it says like you were thinking about similarities of it and the concept, and I think it all inspired from the Logo Man card sale, right?
Yeah, I mean, I vaguely remember, like, I had posted something. I think I did, like, I don't know, like a little story poll or something, just kind
Mm-hmm.
of like getting an idea of, like, type of like content, people would like to see going forward, or like, shifts in the kind of content they consume. I was watching, I think that like morning I might have watched, or the following morning I watched like the Slapnomics episode
Yeah.
with Cajun Cardboard, and they were like talking about some stuff that resonated. And then I saw your post, and I was like, we were kind of joking about like when the hobby signs align, um,
Yep.
and kind of brought our pages across paths. So I reached out and we kind of got chatting, and then now here we are.
No, yeah, that was the most awesome experience because I was always on the fence about, do I want to start another podcast, because I know I currently have one on my other side of my channel that I manage and everything. And I was like, well, I've been always wanting to do one that I have another passion for, which is the hobby and the collection, and getting to know more about people, because I'm a people person. I love making that relationship and becoming friends. And I can say that you and me clicked really well. Like right off the bat, we were already joking with each other and stuff. Especially with your favorite player and all that. It's a good time, and I'm not going to announce it yet until I ask the question. But it's always been a good time having those type of conversations because you bring a lot to this side of the world. Even though you're not a breaker or anything like that, to me, you have a good general sense of knowledge of the actual hobby itself and what the hobby truly means to you and what you bring to it. So that's why I was so excited to bring you on to have everybody just witness that as well.
Yeah, man, I think it's cool when regardless of how long you've been in the hobby, whether it's a few years, few months, weeks, decades, whatever, the stuff that kind of like sticks or resonates with me is just finding people like minds, finding other content creators. Like, I don't really consider myself a content creator. I'm kind of you know I'm not doing like all these episodes and this, that, and the other. But at the same time, like I didn't really create my page until this past spring.
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of like behind the scenes, doing my collecting, doing my thing, and but like I say, when like certain signs align, or you get those little like ideas that pop up, or you meet someone like we did, and things just click, and you just kind of just run with it. You just let
Yeah,
things happen
absolutely.
organically. you
Mm-hmm.
you kind of just like this whole episode, like this is all new for me. I've never been on a show before or anything, so I'm just kind of getting my feet wet, so to speak, in that area. So but yeah, man, I'm just embracing it, having fun with it. It's been a blast.
It's definitely something I personally have enjoyed. And for me, I know when we were having our conversations prior, there was a comment that you once made that actually resonated a lot with me, and it started making me really start thinking more in depthly about my own collection. And that was you saying that you're a collector with an investor mindset.
Yeah.
And to me, I've been in collecting. I've been in the hobby probably now maybe 2 years, pushing 2 years probably. I really don't know the exact number. I know how many times I got in trouble by my wife, but I don't remember when I started. But
Mm. Now, are you like last 2 years? Is that like fresh in the hobby? First time ever, or were you like there as a kid, or?
so my personal story I've shared is that when I was younger, I actually was a collector myself. I didn't know about selling cards or anything like that. I was just a little kid that enjoyed collecting baseball cards. and football cards and basketball cards, mostly baseball, because I could never find soccer cards, even though I played soccer so much growing up. And then I started collecting Pokemon and the other like trading card game stuff because I started
Hmm.
growing a passion because I've enjoyed just the artwork and the feel for it when I see those type of cards. Now that I see it from what they look like today, it's a whole different world, but more creativity has sprung from it and expanded so much. So once I got into high school, I pretty much took a stop. I mean, it was like I was more focused into sports, more focused into school, trying to figure out what my future is going to be holding, and kind of just shifted away from the hobby itself and the collection. I never got rid of any of my stuff, but my oldest daughter, she's 9, and she one time brought some Pokemon cards over to the house that her friend gave her, and we were looking at it and we kind of had some conversation, and I was telling Evo this a couple episodes ago that first pack we ever buy because she really wanted to have the experience. She pulls this monster Espeon card that's worth over $200. And at the
Nice.
time, I really didn't know, but I had a mindset that people really started selling these things and heard about it. So I decided to look the comps up, and sure enough, my jaw dropped, and I was just amazed by that. And I was like, she just pulled this on the first pack, and it was game over from there because that those endorphins that was just released for her and me would just kind of fed that hunger of like, well, we need to go open some more and let's see how good her luck really is. What else
Yeah,
can we
yeah.
get out of it? And so we started with Pokemon for a while, and then she started playing basketball. Well, her favorite team's the Mavericks, and her favorite player is Luca. So she really, really wanted to collect Luca cards. So and it happened to be during the same time that Wemby rookies were the big deal, and I'm sure you
Yep.
know about that.
Oh yeah.
That
Oh yeah.
it was hard to find those basketball blasters or mega boxes because everybody was chasing Wemby,
Yep.
and of course, I knew who the player was, but I didn't know because I was still learning that now there's technically chase players that you really want to focus on getting. And I asked the card shop guy, and he educated me and my daughter a lot, and kind of showed us kind of like a direct footway to how to collect, how to look for certain cards and things because back then they weren't serialized. I never knew there were serialized cards then,
Hmm.
and didn't know there was autograph cards either. So pulling autographs, we freaked out about it. Pulling number cards, we freaked out. Even if it was numbered at 299, we were like, "Whoa, we got one," and stuff. And I remember that it just started growing more and more. The Mavs made the playoffs, so every game we started buying blasters, watch the game, open the packs, and everything. And she even ended up on an episode on YouTube with Mojo Sports,
Oh, nice.
and they were doing a segment where they were chasing their favorite player. It was another little boy with her, and he was chasing Otani cards, and my daughter was chasing Luca cards. And it was a cool experience for her at the Dallas Card Show because she got to one be on YouTube on one of the biggest people out there in the hobby world, and two, she actually got to pull a really nice Luca card at the same time with him. And as we were walking out, we actually ran into Josh Jung and got to take a picture with him, and then ran into Josh Hamilton. It was an awesome experience all around. Like the way that the people in the hobby treated my daughter was so amazing because two people were watching over and they came back and they gave her her first two Lucas slabs, and she just was over the moon for it, and it just kept on growing and growing until one day my wife was like, "Why are you collecting basketball and football and everything else under the sun?" I was like, "Well, that's because it's been fun." It's like, "But you haven't collected soccer." And I'm like, "You know what? That is true. I haven't." So she goes, "Why don't you start collecting those instead?" And I think to this day she probably regrets that choice because she started chasing soccer hard because I started finding them and started seeing them, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And when I really started diving deep into soccer was during the 2024 Copa America,
Hmm.
and that set came out, and I was chasing all the
Hooked.
Colombia cards that you can think of. And the coolest experience was me hitting a Maradona auto at the same time. So again, endorphins gets unleashed, and you're feeding and hungry for more and more, and to the point where I'm at now, where I'm like, okay, take your time on your stuff, really do the research about what you want to collect, who you want to collect. Don't just chase everything under the sun.
Yeah, it's hard not to, because like I can relate to a lot of what you just said. Just being a kid, getting into cards. I was probably 7, 8 years old. Started with
Mm-hmm.
baseball. Had an uncle that had everything under the sun. Like I would remember going over to his house. He'd have cards just spilling out of everywhere. you know, ceiling covered with cards, boxes, sets, binders everywhere. So, 8, 9 years old, going over there and seeing all that, everything that he had, it was just like, whoa. And, he would give me cards here and there. And, I would get stuff on birthdays. And I played sports growing up, a lot of baseball, played soccer, which I was awful at. I I was quick, and I was, decent with like clean up in front of the goal, but I had no dribbles. I had no touch, like easiest guy to get the ball off of. But, I always loved and enjoyed watching soccer. It just wasn't my best sport. I was much better at baseball, much better at American football. But, I always watched soccer over the years, and, watching the World Cup, when friendlies or whatever would come on. And, I was big into like Kobe Jones back in the day, and, for soccer. And I would always remember seeing, guys like Aaron Robin and Van Persie,
Oh, Van
Wesley
Persie.
Snyder, and
Mm-hmm.
just like there's so many like legends from, 90s, early 2000s that, it always kept me engaged, always held the interest. But, like you said, like by the time high school hit, or not even high school, I was probably like 12, 13, and I was collecting up until then. Like I said, it started with baseball. Then I kind of gravitated in toward football and basketball.
Uh-oh. We're having some major lag.
And there's that I would, I was collecting, like I was a big Jerry Rice guy, Tim Brown, Ronnie Lott, and Deion Sanders, Marcus Allen. Baseball side, it was Ken Griffey and a bunch of Phillies guys. Darren Dalton, Lenny
Oh my goodness.
Dykstra.
Mm-hmm.
Like throwback dudes. John Kruk and Mike Schmidt. But I kind of you kind of just like gravitate throughout the years and through the hobby. It's like one sport to the next. And, I collected pretty much up until that 96 draft class NBA, Kobe, Iverson, Ray Allen, Marcus Camby, like absolute legendary draft class. And then,
Yes, yes.
I hit like 13, and it was just like hard stop, and skateboarding took over my life. Like I became a little skate rat, and I couldn't be bothered with cards. Like I didn't get rid of anything, but like I wasn't collecting from that period on. But held on to everything till about college. And even going into college, LeBron was coming into the NBA, and I was fully aware of all the LeBron buzz. But in the back of my head, I'm like, he's probably a good guy to collect it. He's going to go on to do all the things. And
Yeah.
sure enough. But it just wasn't like on my radar. But fast forward a couple years, to like 05, 06, Sidney Crosby, and I was like big into hockey. So after
Loved
college,
watching Crosby.
yeah, Crosby, that '05 draft class was, similar in certain respects to the 96 draft class. You just had so much quality talent come out of that time period. So getting done with college and moving back home, that's what I was chasing. I was chasing Crosby. I was going after Crosby and some Flyers guys, Claude Giroux. Um, who else came out around then? Patrick Kane and Jonathan Tays.
Tays, I
So I
forgot about
was,
him.
I want to say I was like heavy into hockey. I kind of was like, I was running hot for a couple months, and then I kind of just like hit a wall, and I was like, you know what, I've spent X amount of money. Let me just pump the brakes and chill out a little bit.
Yep.
And then that was it. Like that was it until I want to say like late 2022 into 2023, like the whole pandemic era. I just like was oblivious to it. Like I wasn't collecting,
It
like cards weren't on my mind. I had
right.
no idea what was going on like in the card space during the
The bubble.
pandemic. So Um, and at that time, I was on the east coast of Florida. So right at the like toward the tail end of the pandemic is when I moved to Tampa, and made some friends here. And it wasn't until probably like I said, around end of 2022, 2023, my good buddy here, Andrew, he collected, and I had no idea, when we became friends that he collected. So one night he's like, "Oh, I got like what was it? National Treasures." He got like a box of National Treasures, some basketball. I forget what year. It might have been like 2021, maybe, or 22. But anyway, so I was like, no way. Like, what do you mean? What's National Treasures? He's like, oh, it's cards. And so I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God.
Like,
So I was like, you collected. So it was a whole like, no way moment. And so that's kind of what like got me pulled back in. And like, he's kind of just like filling in the gaps on, what was going on during the pandemic and how it was just like cards were going
mm,
crazy. It was just like hand over fist, like anyone and everyone with a PSA, 10 prism. It was just like, it was going nuts. So,
yes. That draft class was crazy.
he did, I was like, oh my, I've been missing this entire time. So yeah, that's like kind of how I got pulled back into it. And, yeah, dude, I cannonballed back into the hobby. There was no dipping my toes. There was no like, test in the waters. I just like went full plunge and was just like, give me this, give me that.
That's
And I was
exactly
just
how I
like,
went
I
through
was
it.
making up for lost time. And I was just like, what have I been missing all this time? So,
Yes.
but I naturally gravitated towards soccer. And, it was just, it's the hobby, in a lot of ways, it's the timing of a lot of things, whether it's, getting in and out of the hobby, what you're collecting when you're in it, what like pulls you back in when you start collecting again, what sport. So, you know,
Right.
I just got pulled right back in, and, soccer is where I naturally gravitated toward. And that's what like I was excited about. So, all those like hockey cards that I collected after college, I kind of consolidated some of that, sold that stuff to like fund the new collection. And it was mostly like there was no rhyme or reason, man. I was just, like I said, I was just aimlessly going after, whatever I, was interested in. And a lot of it
Hmm.
was like Eagles players, and, it was Holland and Jude Bellingham, and it was Foden, and, I was ripping a bunch of wax. Um, so that's kind of like how I re-entered the hobby, and, has, how I kind of like got restarted, I guess. But since then, it's been a fun journey. It's definitely learned a lot of lessons quick. What the hobby had morphed into, and
Yeah.
it was just like hearing what happened during the pandemic, and then kind of seeing, through my own experience, how things have changed even since then. So it's a whole new ball game, in my opinion, man.
It definitely
There's
is
a
a
lot
whole new
going
ball
on
game.
all at once.
Yes, no, I have to agree completely when it comes to a whole new ball game because I felt the same way as you. Like when I first came in, I felt like I had to make up a lot of stuff. Like I felt like I had to go so hardcore that I had to make sure I had the volume. I had to make sure I had some players in any sport or anything that it came up to. When it was like collecting some of the Bowman cards when I first started getting in to see what rookies are way to go, like Ellie De La Cruz and Fernando Tatis and all of them, and then jumping into basketball for the Luca hunting and the Wemby hunting and Brandon Miller, who I will say I kind of invested pretty hard in, and it's not paying off very well with him.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, he's such a
It
good player
happens, man.
too. I lost you.
All good.
You showed that you lagged out for a second. Okay, so I lost you right when you were talking about. Actually, I lost you about literally about 2 minutes ago, and you were talking about how you were diving deep into it. Do you remember that? What you were saying?
um what at what point?
Well, I kind of forgot because I freaked out after I lost you.
I was probably just rambling about just kind of like
We
the
were talking about after Brandon Miller. Right after Brandon Miller, I lost you. when you said it
Um,
happens, that's the way the hobby goes, and
oh yeah, when you're like fresh back in and you're kind of like you're like, oh, like where do I go? Who do I, there's like so much of, what's the saying? You don't know what you don't know.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's like you're jumping back in, and so much has changed since you've last been in. And for me, it was 10, 15 years almost. From like '08 through pretty much 2023. You know what I mean? So there
hmm
was a long stretch where so much changed in the hobby, and especially over the last 5 years. So and it was like the same thing with my buddy Andrew. Like a lot of the stuff he was collecting and moving and had easy time selling during the pandemic. Like it's not so much so now. And he kind of like he pivoted and he went hard on Wemby. And when he was getting that box of national treasures that like pulled me back in, he like decided he was gonna go on the Wemby hunt. And he just had a ridiculous Wemby streak. Like any
oh, I'm
product that he
jealous.
bought to like chase Wemby, like he was hitting. He hit the redemption on like the Bowman U. We went to the local hobby shop here in Tampa. Shout out Baseball Card Clubhouse. Um, and hit I think he got like a Dunross Optic True Gold out of 10. Like
Oh
he
my
was just hitting
goodness,
Wimby every time. And
that's
like,
a monster one.
yeah. And so, it's like you can have luck with it. Obviously it's very volatile when you're chasing young prospective talent. But
hmm
he was just on a silly Wemby streak. And I kind of was ripping a bunch of soccer. And I hit some good stuff. We actually split a case of I know it was Tops, but I forget if it was like Tops Chrome or what. But anyway, split a case of that. Hit a Garnacho Superfractor 1 of 1 when his market was up, so we did well on that. I hit a good some good Jude cards. I hit a Musiala auto. Like, I had some hits, but like the bulk of it, like, compared to, what I spent ripping all that stuff, like I made like 10, 20% back. But you know what I mean?
And it's so hard to see it that way because you're thinking like when you hit something huge, you're excited, you know what the value is going to try to run that and everything. But then when you start crunching the numbers of how much money did I spend to get to this point, and you end up finding out, well, I'm $5 in the green now.
Yeah. And on top of that, like if you hit something good and it looks good enough to grade, you send it to grade. And depending on turnaround times, that player's market could flip before you
Uh-huh.
even get the card back. And if you don't gem or get a near mint, like
It's
like
it's hard. Uh,
it's tough, man. It can like the swings are can be brutal.
I can say that what sucks more in my opinion is the fact that when I came back into just all the different type of collecting and knowing what I knew back then makes me wish that I was still collecting because then I would have been through those generations of the correct type of rookies. I most likely would have hoarded like I have most of my cards. And like even though I'm not a big fan, but I could have had LeBron rookies. I could have had Shohei Ohtani rookies, Trout rookies, Judge rookies. Like I was collecting all that stuff, and to think like, wow, that gap that I took a break from, it was detrimental because that generation produced one of the biggest players and markets out there. Even for like the lowest end, is still a high value. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because you hear all the rumblings, and this person's the next to do whatever. But so much has to happen for that player, right? You
right.
know what I mean? Compared to who their career is going to be measured against, and what they had to achieve to be in the same conversation of the greats of all time, or
hmm
the legends of their respective sports. So it's but every few decades, or there's usually one to two that might fit that bill, right?
Yeah, Absolutely.
So, but now, like now we're seeing a lot of deep talent in all of sports. You know, we see it in football, we see it in baseball with Otani and
Mm-hmm.
a handful of other guys. Like, baseball is not my lane that I'm operating in, but it seems like baseball's getting exciting again, and
Oh yeah, for
there's
sure.
and soccer, obviously, world's biggest sport. Largest fan base. Um, I think it's just more and more eyes are on sports, more and more attention is on the space and the hobby as a whole. So, I think we're in a good spot.
I think so
Obviously,
too.
there's still all those cautionary tales and a lot of like volatility that is associated with prospecting young talent. But the asset class is more legit now, and it's being seen at or viewed as such, and you know I'm excited for what's ahead.
And I'm glad you're bringing all that up because in here in a bit I'm going to actually dive into those type of questions a little bit more in depth for you to give your spiel about it. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to shift towards the fill of the segment. And I got a couple questions for you I'm going to see if you can answer. And we're going to go ahead and get this question out of the way. It's the one question that I knew for a fact that's going to get a different answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway with you. So right off the bat, Messi or Ronaldo as your GOAT?
Let's see here. I got a little something prepped, but let's
I'm sure you do.
let me just here we
Oh, I
go.
wasn't expecting that at all.
Messi all day, every day.
I
I
was
give
not ready for
Ronaldo his
that.
props, as I've told you before. I will fully give Ronaldo his flowers because he deserves them. But for me, it's Messi hands down for a laundry list of reasons, and I could yap away all day about why and this, that, and the other. But yeah, for me, it's just he can do everything Ronaldo can do. He's got the goals, he's got the assist, he's poetry on the pitch, as I like to put it. He's a complete footballer, and I just I don't know.
Well,
I've watched both growing up. I've you know seen the matches with Real Madrid,
uh
and
huh.
for me it was just always came back to Messi because it was just I mean, just watch. You don't have to take my word for it. You can listen to who's played with and against both of them, who's
Yeah,
coached
for
for
sure.
and against both of them. But it's I, I I can have fun with the debate, but at the end of the day, it's I feel like we should appreciate that we have both of them to witness, and
Yes.
you're talking about the two best to do it of the 21st century. And
Yes, I can agree on
whether
that for
you're
sure.
Camp Ronaldo, Camp Messi, whoever's your goat, at the end of the day, you're probably right. For me, I feel like I'm more right. But like I can make the case for Messi. I'm sure it will be
Right.
nauseating to Cristiano fans, but Messi's my goat all day, every day. It's for me. It's just too easy to make the case.
No, I get it totally, and I 100% agree with that one comment that we are, and Evo said it the best way I think is that we are living in a generation where we get to experience not just one but two of the greatest of all time in that class, in that field, on that
Yeah,
pitch,
we should
playing and
feel a
everything.
little should feel privileged and spoiled to
Right.
what's the line at the end of the movie Troy, like be happy you got to live in the time of
Yeah.
Messi and Cristiano. So
Because if you think about in other sport aspects, I mean, like if we go dive into like basketball, yeah, Jordan had Allen Iverson. He had a couple other players that were really, really good, but they were not Jordan level. They will never be Jordan level.
no.
And and like I said, as much as I don't like him, the only one that you can really compete with, well, actually no, let me take that back. You had Kobe that followed up right afterwards, and that to me would be the best argument is Kobe versus Jordan, who is the greatest of all time, because they did get to play a little bit with each other, not much, but you're looking at Jordan's end of his career versus Kobe's beginning of his career. And then you have
Yeah.
the transition from Kobe to LeBron. The LeBron one is the one
Hmm.
I really don't care much about. Is he good and everything? Yeah, he actually is. I give players credit where they're due. But do I consider them as a GOAT? No. Jordan will always be the GOAT, and Kobe's like a tied, almost like right under Jordan for me.
Yeah, I'm in the
Growing up
same
and watching
same
that.
boat. It was for me like growing up in the '90s. Who made me pay attention and watch basketball?
Was the
It was
Bulls.
Jordan. It was Kobe. It was Iverson.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Allen and a few others, but those were my childhood. Like,
Yeah.
as far as basketball goats, like just otherworldly talents and generational talents, and like again, LeBron deserves his flowers, but I wasn't into basketball as much at the time. So, and
Right.
even when Curry came into the league, it was like the same thing. I would watch random NCAA games and come across Curry at Davidson when I would. And he made me kind of like stop and be like, "Yo, this kid's really nice." Like,
Yeah, Curry's the
if
bomb.
he
He's
if
he's
he if
good.
he if he translates, like he's going to be gnarly. And sure enough, like he's so gnarly. And
Yeah,
I'm a big Curry fan, so
the three king. I mean, that guy can
yeah,
pop threes like no other.
bro. He like chucks it up from the parking lot, and it's
Yeah,
just
and it just swoosh,
like,
swoosh
yeah,
every
no
single time.
problem.
But yeah,
Night
like,
night.
and I mean, and obviously, I think in my opinion, and I would love your feedback on this before we dive into the next question. Is that I think from how we grew up with the players that we had versus the players that there are now, we grew up in a generation where there was like onesie twosie players that always stood out, like your Jordans, like your Iversons, like your Maldinis, players like that. But now, because of the way that I think has evolved so much, the way people are trained, people are like the nutrition, dieting, exercising, the working out, the translation of how they go into majors and everything brings in more efficient and more improvement amongst a lot of these players to what they used to do back then,
Oh,
in
for
my
sure.
opinion.
It allows like the newer generations with all the uh, just to be more dialed in with like their game as a whole, with just the way technology is and all
Mm-hmm.
the metrics that can measure performance and what
Right.
have you. So just so much more access to sophisticated data that allows for you know these players to get the most out of their performance in ways that they just didn't have access to in the '90s or even early 2000s. But it's generational changes. The game of basketball has definitely changed
Yep.
since the '90s, and even football and things like that. So it's
Yeah.
just
Exactly.
the progression of the sport.
Exactly. And I think that helps also as a person who's a collector. They can see that because you have those measurements, you have those metrics of how those players are, and you get to see like their how they've done in the past 3 games and project to what they might do in the next 3 games versus the matchup because of all the analysis behind it. I think that helps as an investor in cards look a little bit more in depth about who they want to really invest in towards.
Yeah, it kind of gives you like it's kind of like being able to see the proof in the hobby pudding, or you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean, like because like the reality is player performance correlates to their card market performance. A player's balling out, what do you think is going to happen? A
Ball's
player
gonna
gets
raise.
injured, misses any significant amount of time, season ending injury, what have you, like their
Mm-hmm.
market's going to dip. And
Yep.
depending on how they bounce back, or they come back from an injury, if are they is it a quick return, or do they struggle, do they what I mean? So it's it allows you to kind of have more data points and kind of see what is the correlation to what is the on-field performance versus how that correlates to their card market.
Yes, yes. I remember there was a time, just to go quickly off subject, Puka Nakua. You know who that is, right? Yeah. So,
Yeah, I wish I grabbed him in first round.
yeah, same here actually. But I had a PSA 10 Puka Nakua Green Hyper Prism to 99. And at that time, his market was just skyrocketing super fast. And because Cup was injured, so Puka was getting more touches. And actually, because I wasn't that invested into football, I was okay with letting go football cards. So I had a sell lined up and everything. And that was literally the day that I scheduled to meet up with this person was literally a day after their game, which now I've learned don't ever make sells after a game.
Mm,
Always try to get him done before the game because that was the game that Puka went out with a knee injury.
yeah.
And as soon as that happened and he was out and they already estimated that he was going to be out for like 3 to 4 weeks, the guy texted him and he was like, I'm going to hold off for now on the Puka. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah. It's like
luck.
I can't blame you there a
Yeah,
little
that was
bit, but you know what I mean. Like,
the only
but
response
yeah,
I
man,
was.
it sucks because it can like everything can change on a dime, and it can be game to game. I mean, just look at NFL. Just start the first 3 weeks. Look who's injured.
Oh, already I know. Look at my fantasy
You know what I
team.
mean? Look whose market was like booming over the summer, and then
Well,
you know what I mean.
yeah, look at CJ Stroud. That
CJ
was
Stroud. Look at
super
JJ.
chase.
JJ's banged up.
Mhm.
Jaden Daniels is banged up. I mean, look what happened with just after week 2, Danny Jones card market up 50%.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
he was dead
Go
in the
baby
water a
dimes.
year or two ago. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
my gosh, I
same
know.
thing with AR and Zion Williamson. Like
Oh,
it's
don't even
it's
get me
it's
started on
so
the Zion
tough.
market.
It's tough, man, because most players don't make that transition.
I still have, and I know this is sounding very stupid of me, but I still have hope with the Zion market. I still
He's
think
lost like 50 pounds. I
he,
don't know,
the
like
dude looks like a machine.
he looks like a completely different person.
He
Like
looks like the freaking Terminator. That guy literally finally, after all these years, decided to wake up, not look like Eddie Lacy anymore, and freaking look shredded and beastly.
Luca
I
too, I hear. Luca's
Luke,
dropped
oh my
some
goodness,
lbs.
Luca is buff again too. And Luca doesn't even look like rookie Luca. Like
Yeah.
rookie Luca, if you remember, he was skinny, he was scrawny. And I remember when the Mavs first drafted him, it's like I had very little knowledge of Luca. I'm a Spurs fan, but I do enjoy rooting for the Mavs here and there until they face each other. But when I was looking at Luca, I was like, this guy's the number one prospect. What can he do? And oh man, Luca is a generational talent for sure, in my opinion. I mean, my daughter loves him, so I'm not trying to be biased about it, but
How's she handling him being on the
oh,
Lakers?
I kid you
Devastated.
not. Oh, she was. She literally. I mean, I thought she got dumped by a boyfriend the way she took it. And I feel so bad because I was like, we were determined to go. I wanted to take her so bad to a Mavs game, and so she got to see him play live because we always caught every game on the TV. But it never worked out with our schedule because either she had practice, games, school events, stuff like that. So I made a promise, like, okay, no matter what, even if we have to miss one thing, we'll go. And then I see on the news, Luca traded, and I was like, what?
Had to deal with a meltdown.
I never thought I would have to like prep her for this. Like, I'm sorry, sweetie, but Luca got
Never saw this
traded,
coming.
and she was
Yeah.
just poor girl was just
It's like,
crying
what do you
about it.
mean?
It's like he can't leave me. I'm like, he doesn't even know you. I was
That's
like,
funny.
oh my goodness. But let me go. Besides all that, let me go to this next question. So, when you focused on your collection, were you primarily looking for items that you knew had amazing growth potential, or were you more driven on the market side, or more towards the player's legacy when you invest in a card?
I would say it was a little bit of all the above because I like when I got back into it, when I was just kind of like aimlessly collecting like whatever without any really rhyme or reason or direction to it. I got burnt out, man. I got I kind of hit a wall and hit like hobby fatigue, and I was kind of like, why am I doing ABC when I should be doing XYZ and I should be doing it with Messi? Um, I kind of was. It was good timing of things, looking back like the last like year and a half, when I kind of like made that pivot. I had this like epiphany because I was, I was watching, I don't know, it might have been, I was probably watching Cajun Cardboard. I like his stuff, and I applied a lot of, just little like little knowledge nuggets that he was dropping, relating to Jordan cards, but I was associating it with Messi because after the pandemic, the market kind of dropped off a bit, and kind of hit a little bit, like I guess like a little bit of a lull.
Mm-hmm.
Soccer values dropped off, Mbappe dropped off, Holland dropped off after that like Man City trouble run, and City was kind of struggling, and Holland was dealing with injuries, and his market dropped, Foden's market dropped, Bellingham, his market dropped. Um, so I was like, I wasn't, it wasn't sparking joy, just like ripping wax and spending the amount of money that I was spending, and really, you have like what is it, a 5% or less chance of hitting, anything that is either gonna, make your money back, or something you're gonna profit.
Right.
So I just kind of was like not collecting for a stretch of like 3-4 months, and then like I said, I kind of had this epiphany, and I remember I was talking with my broker because things were happening in the hobby, and I was like, do you know anything about like sports cards or like collecting or anything, know anything that's going on in the market? And he was like, nah. So I was kind of telling him about some stuff, and I'm like, talk to him about like Messi cards, and there was like a PSA 9 for the 71 bits that had like dropped off a lot. It was like sitting at like less than 20 grand at one point, and then it kind of like picked back up, and those kind of felt like little market indicators. You know what I mean? Like there was his value just seems so undervalued compared to respective goats of other sports. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I just felt I was like I should be doing XYZ and apply it to Messi, and so I did. I was like, I'm gonna go after high grade, low pop, cards of significance, cards that you know scarcity. One of my biggest rules. I have like total nerdy stuff. Like I got my whole like little top 5 hobby rules that I made for myself, right?
Yeah,
And
let's hear it.
number 3, or okay, in order, obviously the cliche one, but it's true. Collect what you like and have fun with it. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Still enjoy it.
Rule number 2, see rule number 1. Rule 3, scarcity creates necessity. And so I just, that always kind of like stuck out in my mind, or was in like the forefront of my mind when I was applying it to whatever I was collecting. So when I like made that hard pivot, and it wasn't just Messi, I was like, but I also want to like collect this other stuff. I don't want to just like, it was the bulk Messi, but I was like, I really like 2017 Topps Chrome, and I really like 2018 Treble, both first year sets. Uh, Treble was a one and done print run. You know what I mean? Like that was it. They didn't release anything on the Treble side after 2018. So I was focusing on that kind of like that window from 2014 to 2018, because there's just like, it was like what I felt was like a golden era, or like a golden time period for a lot of first set modern soccer.
Yeah,
You
it was the
had
spark of a new generation.
2014 World Cup. You had 2016 Select and 2015 Select, which was the first year for Select Soccer. Then you had Flawless. That was another one and done run. You had a one that I've kind of like been dipping my toes in a little bit recently is 2016 Panini Gold, Black Gold. I'm sorry.
Oh, black gold. Yep. I got a couple of
So
those.
there's a lot of like cool little sets from that whole 4 or 5 year period, and there's some monster cards in that range. So that's kind of like I kind of had that that moment where I hit a wall. I wasn't really having that much fun doing what I was doing. So, I was like, all right, time out. Let me just kind of zoom out and just kind
Mm-hmm.
of reflect. And, a lot of the cards that I initially bought, and was, essentially selling for a loss. I wasn't beating myself up over it. I kind of just chalked it up to the cost of the education. And what I was able to get out of those cards, I reallocated them into messy stuff and 2017 Chrome and
Right.
2018 Treble and a bunch of other stuff. So, um, yeah, I didn't look at it like, like from a doom and gloom perspective. I'm looking for the opportunities in both bear and bull markets. And, there are opportunities in both, in my opinion. When you have a lot of focus or a lot of demand on one player's market over here, that means there's less eyes and demand on this player's market over here. So, if you, we look at, you know, how soccer, after it kind of dropped off and Mbappe and Holland were quiet, Lamine Yamal blew up, and he was kind of like that catalyst in the sense that kind of like brought eyes back to soccer. And then, as you're talking about any young prospective talent across any sport and comparing their game or what they're doing on the field to
Yeah.
whoever or the next whoever, then those names start being spoken about. So if you look at kind of like the hobby psychology of it, right? If when we're seeing players, talking about players, then we start to seek them out. So when a player's in the news, then you start, talking about them, you start thinking about them, you start
Right. The hype
seeking
gets
out
built
their,
up. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then so if you're seeing them, you start seeking them. Same thing with you're hearing about them or talking about them. So, Lamine Yamal's market went nuts, but then because he's in the conversation of Cristiano and Messi, then the eyes drift back toward the all-time greats. And so there was this stretch where there was just so many juicy Messi cards just there for the taking, and I was just give me all of them. You know what I mean? Like I was on every auction for the cards that I was targeting, and I was identifying these sets, and then boom, I was finding the cards on eBay or wherever, and it was ridiculous. Some of the auction prices I got some of these cards are for, because a lot of them were 20, 30, 40% below like
What the market
market
is at.
value or what it so the timing was good. The pivot was key, and a lot of it obviously was like luck. I was kind of expecting what's been happening the last like 6 to 7 weeks or so, last month and a half, almost 2 months now, going back to like the national, when the big news broke and the Paul Ryan sold his PSA 10 copy and it went for 8.25, and the green Messi Kaboom went for over $1 million. And I was expecting that to kind of more happen a little closer to the World Cup, but I
Yes.
think because of what was happening with Lamine Yamal and the Ballon d'Or race and everyone who was in contention for that, it just kind of it happened a year out from the World Cup, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just like holy shnikes moment. You know what I mean? Like it was like whoa, and it just like took off, and it didn't, and like and there like I get the bubble. It feels like a bubble in ways. I could, it probably parallels to like what market bubbles feel like, but ultimately for me, it felt like a reset, a recalibration event, especially with the growing interest in the sport. Not only here in the States, but in the Asian markets, like, India has a big soccer following, South America, like,
Mm-hmm.
and so much is compressing and converging not only on soccer, but just the space and the hobby in general. I mean, It's getting more integrated. It's getting more institutionalized in ways. It's getting, a lot deeper pockets are coming into the space.
Yes.
It's there's, like I said, it's a lot going on all at once, and it's a lot it can be overwhelming. It's a lot to digest and take in, but I ultimately, for me personally, it just like all of it is exciting to me.
I agree. I 100% agree. And I think what also helps, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here because this is just my 2 cents. I mean, take it with a grain of salt for anybody who else is listening. But when it comes to soccer, you have certain players that can actually break that wall, that barrier that integrates into the other collectors that collect, in football and basketball and baseball because like when I went to the Dallas Card Show with my daughter a couple of years ago, it was so hard to find any soccer, extremely hard. But the soccer that I did find was always Messi, Ronaldo, CR9, like the key players that always had that really high market. Like they knew who to chase and who to sell because of their market capabilities. But now that we're getting closer to the World Cup and stuff, I've been seeing more and more soccer pop up on a lot of these tables that I've known these people that collect primarily like football and baseball that they're starting to have Jude pop in there. You have Arda Guler starting to pop in there more. You have Rodrigo Mora, who's been the biggest rookie chase for this year. Giovanni Quenda has been popping up in more stuff, and you're starting to see how soccer is now starting to
Esteval
meld.
and
Oh yeah,
Due
Esteval and
and
Due,
like
they broke those.
Vitinha, Rapinha, like all of them.
You see this no longer barrier that's been holding all these soccer players that we personally know have been really good and worth the market and stuff. Is starting to now meld with the other market competitors, and they're seeing that. I think they're really seeing that soccer is a hidden gem that you're gonna have these opportunities with more players because it's a global sport versus baseball, which is primarily in the USA and Japan, or basketball. Basketball would probably be the next global sport because you have so many countries that play basketball, but hockey you don't see it spread out globally as much because
Mhm.
of its characteristics, I guess you would say. But
Yeah, it's a
soccer,
winter sport. It's a cold weather sport. You
right?
know.
But now you're seeing golf, starting to make some pictures in there, and then you have tennis, which tennis is
Yeah, I
always,
was
in
just
my
gonna say
opinion, like
tennis, golf, F1. You know,
F1's a big one. Like you're starting to see the
UFC's
market
getting
really
big,
expand.
WWE.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah. Um, but yeah, I think you have those players who like people who are on like the peripheral or don't really know the depth of talent or the depth of players. Like their entry point is those guys who are current, who are relevant, who are hot in the market right now. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's like the market kind of or the mindset kind of like works backwards in that respect. You go with who is attainable or relevant and the it person in the market, and then after you kind of like satisfy that appetite or whatever, then you kind of backtrack and start this discovery process of everyone else.
That's why, like I mentioned earlier, the way that you phrase that, I'm a collector with an investor mindset. I'm telling you, like seriously, it resonated something in me where I wouldn't say I was at burnout phase by any means, but I was getting pretty close.
Mm.
Because like I said, like
I
I
think a
was the
lot of
type,
people do.
and it happens, and I mean it's life. If you hit the wall so many times, are you really wanting to run into that wall again? No, not at all.
Yeah, no, you mean you got to like, yeah, you got to, if you're not having fun with it, then something's off, right?
Something's off, and that's
So
why I
switch it
think
up.
exactly, and that's why I've been thinking so more in depth about how I collect now that I've halted on buying into breaks because yeah, they're fun, especially if you hit something because of that endorphin rush that you can get out of it. But then I start thinking, like, well, I meant, spent X amount on this when I could have just bought this. I mean, to each their own when it comes to this, okay? Seriously. Like, don't think that I'm telling you and giving you financial advice whatsoever. But for me personally, when I started analyzing all this from my perspective and my gains, is that I want to, I want to purge all my cards. I want to just sell them all off except for my Colombia cards because I do have passion for that. I do love all my Colombia cards because that's me. That's my blood. That's it's in
Hmm.
my genes. And but I want to take the time and now focus on like the players individually. Who do I want to start collecting and know that they have a longevity in this sport and that it's not really like playing it safe, but like playing it where you know there's still gonna be gains out of it. When one day, if you ever need to sell it, then you're like, yeah, I made some good, decent money out of it. I'm not thinking I'm trying to get rich out of this hobby whatsoever because I wanted to be a hobby first. But if I can get gains from it, then yeah, that's a awesome opportunity.
Yeah, and I can echo that because, like you said, it's collector at heart, investor mindset. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, like the approach is, I want to go after the cards that like resonate with me, but also simultaneously want to build a collection or curate a collection that not only is builds monetary equity but collector equity as well.
Right, kind of having like two diversity portfolios is the way I like to think of it. I have
Yeah.
my one portfolio, which is all my Colombia cards that I don't care if they win money or lose money. I love them. I
Yeah.
knew the players. I idolized some of them growing up, like Carlos Valderrama, Escobar, Rene Higuita. All of them, those players resonate something inside of me and always brings that passion of soccer back into my heart. And especially like current players like James Falcao, Cuadrado, Lucho, those type like
Mhm.
I will always have such passion collecting those. And then portfolio B where I want to be like collecting the right Holland cards. I want to collect the right Mbappe cards, who I still believe his market's so underrated. I want to focus on some of the good rookies that I think have a good potential. Like obviously, Lamine Yamal is probably a loss now. I'm lucky to have some really good ones that are graded and held on to and eventually maybe flip him around. But I have some Artigula rookies that I still think he's going to be at that tier, not like
Yeah,
Lamine tier, but close.
I'm high on Artigula. I like
There we go.
Artigula. He's nice.
Exactly, and I'm a huge believer with Esteval and Cuenda and the upcoming Portuguese squad, and so those are like things I want to focus, but also the legends because the legends will always hold that value in my opinion, like your
Absolutely.
CR9, your Ronaldinho, your Messi, your I mean they will
There's
always have that
so many.
equity.
There's so
There's
many. Like
so many.
the depth of legends over the last like 2 3 decades. Like there's so many players to discover and collect that like even if you feel like you're priced out of Ronaldo and Messi, like you got Zidane, you got Lewandowski, you got I mean like
The list goes on
I can go in and
forever.
I'm like blanking, but like like Maldini and Cantona and like there's so many awesome players through the ages that like there's you can just like keep
Hmm.
discovering and find one legend after the other. And like you
Exactly.
said, it's there's compared to the other sports, there's so much less of those cards, soccer cards, than there is for baseball, basketball, football.
Right, exactly. So I'm gonna have to kind of like shift gears here. I mean, we could talk hours on this. I feel like it is such a fun, interesting topic for me, and I know you have the passion for it as well. But I gotta now ask this next question to move on to the next segment. Is I need you to
Yeah, sure.
flex that PC. Let's see what you got.
All right, so first card, non-Messi related, but it was one of the hockey cards that I did hang on to that um, that I decided to, it's not a big card, but it's a cool card. It was a card that um, I pulled in a pack or like in a box from I don't even know where. It was probably it could have even been from like a Walgreens. But yeah, Ovechkin. I
Very
think it's what is
nice.
it? What is it? The Parkhurst facsimile auto, 16 out of 100, double jersey number.
Nice.
Um, so that was one I decided to hang on to when I was getting rid of all my '05 and that run of hockey stuff. I had a few Young Guns rookie cards, but sold those to get some other stuff. So outside of that, we got
And
the
here they
first
come.
MLS gold auto jersey match on card. Gotta have it. That is, these are the
You sure
you
his
know
brother didn't
the
sign that?
Well, I mean, I really hope not. I feel good
They
about the
graded
auto
it.
because they graded a card, but it's not like the auto wasn't graded or authenticated. However, I've seen the suspect autos.
Yes.
This doesn't look suspect because even on like if you notice how he does like the Leo on
Yes, I saw that on
that
one of your
end,
posts.
that is pretty consistent with his autos the way he
Yes.
does like the Leo under the that line off that loop. But yeah, these are kind of like the building's on fire and I have three cards to save. So and then this is probably like one of my all-time favorite Messi's
Oh
ever
wow.
in the catalog. The '08 Mega Cracks. They're absolutely insane to grade. They do not gem, and this is a pop three BGS pristine. So, and then the big
Dang.
boy, the boy, our 8.5
Oh.
bis. This is one of three bisses that I've had. I had in the spring. I had a goal to birthday gift myself one 71 bis. In August, I ended up with three. So, you
Hey,
know,
that
pouncing
honestly,
on opportunities, pouncing
I
on opportunities.
I would say that's as much as I say it always, but that's a very good card to have in your possession. One of my friends, Whip, I think he finally managed to get a hold of one. I can't remember which one, but he's been chasing a messy rookie for a long time, and I know he's been successful finally to get one. So shout out to both
Yeah,
of y'all.
the Biss is a nice one. My favorite three of the rookies are the 71 Biss, the Mooney Chromo, and the Campio slash Campion with
Mm-hmm.
like the portrait. It's just like it's such a nice looking card, especially if you get
Yes.
like good registration and good color and what have you. But yeah, those are my favorite messy rookies. But if I couldn't have any of the messy rookies, it's that '08 Mega Cracks all day long.
Right. So here's mine. I had to match you four for four because I remember you telling me you had four to flex. So here's my four. I have 23-24 PSA 10 blue Arda Guler, his rookie one.
Yeah, that's nice.
Got that one, the blue short print out of the hobby boxes. Here's one of my favorite ones because I've been starting to now chase him a little bit more because I still think he still has a good market. 2016 Select PSA 10 multicolored prism of Neymar Jr.
Yeah, that's a really nice card.
That card is clean. I love that card.
That the golds from that, the greens from that, like any of those
Mm-hmm.
gold like
Oh,
color
dude.
matches with
I
the
have so
jersey,
many of the
bro.
Colombia ones
Those are
from the
so
16
juicy.
Select. Oh, they're beautiful. I got
Yeah.
this one from Spinnaker, and what the funny story behind this one was, he randomly just pulled one of the cards from his PSA submission reveal, and he goes, "You know what? Let's play a game." He covered the grade, and he goes, "Everybody can." He started at $1 for bidding, and I ended up winning it for like $35. And
Mm.
he moved his thumb, and I saw a PSA 10. I was like, "Yes, that was a solid one to win."
Score.
And then I had to flex one of my daughter's cards. This is actually hers. This one's not mine, but this is a 2018 Panini Chronicles PSA 9, but it's a pink parallel of Luka Doncic rookie.
Oh yeah,
That's my daughter's card.
that card's not going anywhere.
Nope, she won't get rid of that at all. She did good. She traded a chunk of her cards to invest into that, so I was very proud of her.
You should get one of those like little like what's it like the slab holders, but get her a Lakers one.
Oh no, we both don't like the Lakers.
No.
And then one of my favorite ones, it didn't grade the best, but it's a PSA 9, but it's still one of one, and it's a 22-23 FIFA Select Luis Sinistera rookie.
Nice. That's a nice card. Really nice.
I I
Is that like a
completed.
black 101?
Yep, that's the black
Yeah.
101. And funny story with this one is that I've been trying to complete the rainbow, but I wasn't paying attention one day with some of the green out of five and the think there's the blue. I bought the wrong parallel of it. The mezzanine, I think I got. Yeah, I have the mezzanine and I bought the terrace. So I have a redneck rainbow of Luis Sinisterra.
That's fine. It counts now.
It still counts. It's still him, and it's actually every color. So
Yeah.
one of
Well,
my first rainbows completed. I got two that I've been working on for a long time, but one day it'll be completed. But now we're gonna go ahead and come towards the winding down of our show. All
sure.
right, so it's game time. So I have the Would You Rather game with you. All right, got about
Hmm.
15 questions. I'm gonna spam these questions to you really fast, and I need you to answer as quick as you can on what your answer would be. All right,
Yep.
you ready? Would you rather score the winning goal in the World Cup final or win the Ballon d'Or twice?
World Cup final.
Okay. Would you rather have the vision of De Bruyne or the finishing of Holland?
Ooh,
Both
both are so good.
are very good.
Uh, I would say finishing of Holland, even though it's like a coin flip for me. So, but I mean, and I do love KDB, and I'm sad to see haven't seen him left Man City. But yeah, I'm gonna go Holland.
See, I would go vision. I would like to be the playmaker in it.
Yeah.
Would you rather play your whole career for your favorite club but never win a trophy, or win the Champions League but with your rival club?
I'm gonna go with the first one.
Would you rather be remembered as a legend in a small league or a solid role player in Europa's biggest club?
Hmm, that's tough. I'll go with sound role player in Europe's biggest club.
Okay, that's a good one. Here's a tough one. Would you rather be managed by Pep or Jose Mourinho at your peak?
Oof, I want Pep. Pep all day.
Okay. All right, here's one that I came up just for you. Would you rather pull a Messi auto out of 10 from a hobby box or hit a one of one rookie of the next big star?
Hmm. Normally, I would probably. Are we talking sticker or on card auto?
No, you're overthinking it.
um, yeah, I probably would go Messi with the auto.
Okay, okay.
I mean, goat auto, versus someone that could be something. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going with the sure thing. I'm lock it down. Give me that auto.
All right. Would you rather rip 10 retail blasters for free or one sealed hobby box you had to keep sealed?
Do I get to pick the box?
I'll say yes.
All right, yeah, I'm keeping a box of sealed 2018 treble.
Ooh, okay. All right, here's another tough one. Would you rather have a PSA 10 rookie sticker of Ronaldo or a BGS 9.5 Messi rookie card?
Messi BGS.
Okay. Would you rather own just one grail card worth 50K or a PC of 500 cards worth $100 each?
Hmm. I'll probably go with the spread of the 100 cards because there are going to be a handful of cards in there that could end up being big time. So,
Okay. Would you rather have every box you rip be a mediocre but fun, or one box with a massive life changing hit, but you will never hit something like that again in life?
man, because that's part of what we rip for, right? For that
Uh,
that banger. Man,
oh, they get
yeah,
tougher,
I'll
trust
go.
me.
Yeah, I'll go with the first one just because satisfying the itch of being able to just like continue to rip stuff, and then instead of having to be like one and done with it, regardless of the outcome,
Yep.
just give me nostalgia of just being able to like rip at will.
There we go. Okay. Here's a tough one. I think this one's tough for me too. Would you rather meet your favorite player and get a card signed in person, or pull their superfractor one of one from a pack?
Yeah, get something signed in person.
Would you rather would you rather your personal collection get stolen but fully recovered after a year, or never stolen, but you can't buy, sell, or trade cards for a year.
Ooh, that's not that bad. What was the first part again? Sorry.
Personal collection that gets stolen, but does get fully recovered after a year.
I'm gonna go with the latter. Yeah, I can deal not having to like sell or do anything as long as knowing that it's like not tampered with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. All
You take
right.
my collection, I get it back. I'm like, what did you do with it?
All right, I got two
So
questions left for you, and I think these are both really good ones. Would you rather trade your entire PC for one Messi rookie PSA 10, or keep your PC but you'll never own a Messi card again?
um,
Yeah, that one hits deep, doesn't it?
well, does that also mean like the Messi cards in my PC? I don't get to
Oh,
have
you're
them.
overthinking it.
Well, I mean, it matters a little bit, like I
Let's
mean,
say in this scenario, yes,
I do get to keep them or I don't.
that you
Like the
don't get to keep it.
Messi's. Well, then, yeah, I'd probably have to go with that PSA 10 rookie.
Okay. If I said yes, what would your answer be then?
Then I'd probably hang on to the collection because then at least, even if I don't have a PSA 10 Messi rookie, I still have rookies.
Okay. I can see both sides. That's a good way. All
You
right,
know,
last question. Would you rather rip a box live on stream with Cristiano Ronaldo or play a casual 5A side match with Lionel Messi?
I mean, both would be really cool.
They'd both
I
be
would.
great experiences.
Um, Messi would just embarrass me on the pitch.
But it'd be a
But
cool experience.
yeah, I cannot pass up that opportunity just to like be in the vicinity of Messi, let alone on the pitch. So
I
yeah, I'm gonna
mean,
take that.
and
I'd
now I'm
probably
about to dive deep into this.
I would probably just be like I'd be so shocked. I wouldn't be able to move, but
But you're still in the presence of him.
I would just be like honing whatever aura farming I could get off Messi. Just suck it all in.
Such good terms, aura farming. I
Yeah,
started hearing that from my daughter. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? So
I
I
know,
looked
I
it
know.
up. But okay, but think of it this way, and now I'm now diving deep into this. Even if it was any player in the world, like if you had the opportunity to actually like play a day of soccer with that professional player, regardless who it is, Messi, Ronaldo, James, Arda, whoever, I think I was versus opening a box of cards live stream. I think I'd rather take the full day of playing
Oh
soccer
yeah, yeah.
than
I can,
opening cards.
yeah. You can live stream anytime you want if you want.
Yeah, and I get that
An
you have
opportunity to be on the pitch with any legend or anyone that you like revered growing up or at any point in your life, then yeah, me personally, I take that all day.
and I know like the first half of it is you're still with a legend doing some type of event, but I think the difference is that you're just sitting beside them opening packs, maybe a couple jokes here and there, and some type of communication. But on the pitch, it's a whole different emotion.
Oh
You're
yeah,
having like interaction. You're kicking the ball with one of the best people in your
yeah.
opinion.
You're kind of seeing them in their element
And you're
doing,
yeah,
and yeah, it's being there in person for something to like witness or experience something that you've only watched for however long,
right.
you
It's like when
know.
you go to a baseball game and you see the outfielders playing catch with the kids. That experience one of the best ones
Oh,
out there.
that shapes people. That shapes kids. That inspires kids to go on and be baseball players or soccer players or
Exactly.
think of all the 8-year-olds or who are so spoiled right now down in Miami getting to see
Mm-hmm.
Messi play and the effect that's going to have on kids going forward that want to play soccer are going to be interested in soccer and
Exactly.
so
I know it's a
it's
would you rather, but I totally took that to a philosophy. Well, however you pronounce this stinking word.
philosophy.
Yeah. But that's all I have for today. I definitely want to bring you back on for a future episode. I mean, this has just been a blast having you on here.
Yeah,
And
man, it was a good time.
the floor is yours. If you have any closing comments that you want to shout out to the people, your handle, whatever projects you have coming up, this is your
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah. Tim at Legacy Vault. Big old messy stand. If you go to my page, it's all there. But I'm I don't plug myself too hard. If people want to like and follow, they can, and if they want to, they will. Um, but yeah, man, just have fun in the hobby. Don't let you know the wild west nature of things kind of get you spooked, or feel that like any given moment or whatever, that FOMO is fueling your decisions, or that you're going to miss out on something. Like, I personally believe that there's going to be more buying opportunities in the future for a lot of players that are being collected right now, especially that next wave of generational talent that's gonna carry the torch once Messi and Cristiano and Lewandowski and Modric and Mueller, when all those guys
Mm-hmm.
wrap it up and hang up the cleats. That next wave to carry the torch, like the hockey or soccer's in a good spot. So. A lot of these guys are very early in their careers, and there's a lot of promise, but there's going to be more opportunities for to buy some of these players. I believe all it takes is an injury, or something to happen that cools their market down. I mean, look at Messi's cards and Ronaldo's cards back in 2012, 2014. Like, it's like they were so cheap compared to what they are now.
Yep.
And the market has fluctuations. Not everything is just going to run super hot and be super frothy forever. Eventually it's going to cool off. Eventually, those that froth is going to settle, and things are going to level out, and you're going to get clearer pictures of things. So it's just what Evo touched on in episode 2. Do your diligence, do your homework, do your research, be picky, be selective.
Mm-hmm.
Scarcity, significance, symbolism. Like, in in markets that are so oversaturated, scarcity is king.
Yep.
And I just come up, do the little nerdy stuff, like come up with your own personal hobby rules.
Yeah. Exactly.
For me, like, scarcity creates necessity is always in my mind, and I apply it to like so much of how I approach collecting, or investing, or how I'm looking at certain trends, or whatever the case. So you know if I can echo anything or mirror anything that I've learned, it's like it's those things. And be positive, like Brian with Cajun Cardboard says, be positive in the hobby. I can't agree more. So it's a fun time, it's an exciting time, it's a crazy time, but that's the hobby.
Well, thank you again for being a part of the show. I enjoyed it so much having you on, and I look forward to future episodes. And for all you viewers out there, I hope you had a great time with us. And like what we always say, collect what you love, enjoy it, and come back for more. We'll catch y'all later.
Yeah. Collect with intent.
Peace.